Right, I just want to make a note that it is Tuesday, the 9th of April, 2024, right now. That's when I'm saying this. I just want to say something to vaccinated people. People who took the COVID vaccine and think that the lockdowns were necessary and wearing a mask was necessary and all that shit. Even now in 2024, we are still not allowed on YouTube to say certain things. Not allowed to tell you where the virus really came from, even though the information is available. Not allowed to tell you anything about the vaccine. What I can do, though, is do a thought experiment, a series of questions that, if you answer them honestly, it will demonstrate the illogic that you have been obeying. The questions are simple, but the answers will not be, because that's what happens when you indulge in illogic. It becomes difficult to answer simple questions when it shouldn't be, right? So I'm going to basically have a little debate with myself right now. I want you to listen to it and see how it turns out, right? Because this is how it would go if I was sitting with a vaccinated person right now. I would say, hey, vaccinated person, why aren't we in lockdown right now? And you know what their answer would be? Their answer would be, we're not in lockdown anymore because we're vaccinated. There was a virus and there was no vaccine. We had to go in lockdown. And then there was a vaccine. And even though, if you think back, after people took the vaccine, you still had to wear a mask and socially distance and all that shit for ages, even though everyone was vaccinated. Do you remember that? Of course you don't. Anyway, I'll just try and keep it simple. So the reason we're not in lockdown right now is because people have taken the vaccine so they're safe from the virus. Okay, I'll accept that. Next question. What is the purpose of boosters? And you know their answer would be, oh, because there's variants. So even though I'm protected from the original virus, there's variants. And we're not protected against them. So we need boosters to protect us against them. Okay, so I ask again, why aren't we in lockdown right now? And this just goes around in circles because you cannot justify the original lockdown without admitting that we should be in lockdown right now. And you can't justify why we're not in lockdown right now without admitting that it was unnecessary in the first place. Because I don't know if you remember the conspiracy theorists telling you it's not just going to be one vaccine, it's going to be multiple vaccines. And you were like, shut up, conspiracy theorists, you think you know things, you don't know things. And then they went, it's going to be 2 vaccines, by the way. And you were like, well, it's only 2. It doesn't mean it's going to be like loads, like you said. It's just 2. And there was this whole thing about it's a 2-part vaccine. You've got to take a little bit of it now and you take the rest later. It's only a 2-part vaccine. Don't freak out. But then after the second one, it's like, oh, you've got to take a 3rd one. Oh, and a 4th one. And you're still taking them. So if I was not a conspiracy theorist, and if I was someone who trusted the news and trusted the science and all this shit, then I would tell the conspiracy theorists, hey, shut up. But then when it turned out they were right, I would at least ask, oi, how did you know that? How come you know there was going to be multiple vaccines and I didn't? And now I'm the one fucking taking them. But you've never done that, have you? You've never gone, hey, wait a minute, how did they know something before I knew it? Wouldn't occur to you, because then you'd actually have to check out what the conspiracy theorists are checking out, and then you'd be a conspiracy theorist, and you don't want to do that. So what you did, instead, is justify it and go, oh, no, it's only a 2-part thing, but it's now a 3-part thing, and now it's a forever part thing. And it's all just to avoid ever saying, oh, maybe this vaccine doesn't work. Because the conspiracy theorists said to you, if it works, then why do you have to keep taking them? And your excuse that you got handed by the fucking mainstream media, they handed you a nice little excuse. Oh, it's because of the variants. The virus is constantly mutating. Duh. Tell the conspiracy theorists they're stupid for not knowing that. Okay, then. But if there's variants, that means it's still a virus. That's why I need a vaccine. So why aren't we in lockdown? Your reason for the lockdown is because there's a virus. You say that there's a virus, that's why you need a booster. So why aren't we in lockdown? You're not getting this, are you? not saying I want to be in lockdown. I'm just saying, do you remember when we were? Do you remember why we were? Okay, so why aren't we now? Some of the excuses that I've heard are so pathetic that it's hilarious. All you can do is laugh. It's like, why don't you just admit that the vaccine doesn't work? It does work. Well, how come you got COVID after getting the vaccine? Well, just because it's not 100% effective doesn't mean it's not effective. What? Okay, well, let's have a look at the percentage then. Like, how, percentage-wise, how effective is it? Like, out of all the people that have taken it, how many of them have had COVID since taking it? I would say it's like in the high 90s. Like 98% of you have had COVID since taking it. So how are you even allowing yourself to call that effective? And then the next excuse is, well, just because I got COVID after taking the vaccine, I didn't get it as bad. I still got COVID, but I would have got it worse if I wasn't vaccinated. Really? Well, how have you never spoken to an unvaccinated person and asked them about their COVID experience? They had the same COVID that you've had. You didn't get it as bad. Do you know you can get COVID and it's unsymptomatic? No symptoms. How can you get less bad than that? Oh, I've got COVID. Really? Oh, how'd you feel? Oh, fine. Meanwhile, vaccinated people have had COVID multiple times. Oh, but I didn't get it as bad. How do you even know that anyway? It's ridiculous. So after taking a vaccine to stop you from getting COVID, you got COVID anyway, but you didn't get it as bad, apparently. Somehow you know that. And then you keep taking them, and then you keep getting COVID. I'm not vaccinated. I've had COVID once, maybe 1.5 times. So pretty much everyone that's taken the vaccine has had the virus since taking the vaccine, but still insists that it would have been worse if I didn't take the vaccine. And then you've got to keep taking them because there's variants of the virus that you can't keep up with, meaning that you need to get a new vaccine for a variant that's around. They have to know about the variant before they can make a vaccine for it, right? In which case, shouldn't we be in lockdown right now? Since your big justification for the lockdown was, oh my God, it's a scary virus that doesn't kill anyone and it's got no symptoms. But now, like ages later, you're still taking vaccines for the same virus, still getting the virus. I'm hearing vaccinated people say that they're ill with COVID all the time, still. And then your justification for that is, oh, there's variants and that's why we still need boosters. And I'm like, well, there's variants all over the place. Shouldn't we be in lockdown? It's just like it goes around in circles because you went along with bullshit 3 years ago and you just can't go back on yourself. So, and you don't understand that the bullshit you're coming out with now completely contradicts what you said before. So to call it effective at this point is a complete joke, all right? And I understand that if you took it multiple times, you actually have your bias running through your veins. So you don't want to face it. You don't want to admit it. I understand that. But I'm talking about the lockdowns. And I'm talking about the force and the tyranny. And you've got to take this vaccine or you're going to lose your job. Don't you understand that? I don't think you do understand that because I've realised something about the vaccinated and the mask wearers and the people that just obey. I've realised something about you. Is if you don't resist force, then you don't actually know how forceful they were. If you just went along with everything, then you're like, what's everyone complaining about? Why is everyone going crazy? Why is everyone a conspiracy theorist? Because only if you resist authority do you understand how authoritative they are and how they come down on you. You don't know that because you never resisted. You just went along with things. But now you're going along with horse shit that is evidently clear. It's right in front of your face. All of this shit about the hospitals were overrun with people dying of COVID. Well, yeah, they were overrun because they told people that work there that if they get a runny nose, they have to take 2 weeks off. So they were understaffed. And they also told doctors, oh yeah, don't see patients. Well, doctors just took it upon themselves to not see patients because they might catch COVID off of them. So they just redirected you straight to the hospital. It's just ridiculous. Of course the hospitals were overrun. But you justified all of it because you didn't want to rock the boat and you just wanted to go along with things. And if we just go along with it, it's only temporary and yeah, let's just do it. Let's just vaccinate everyone. It's simple, it's easy, it's the easiest solution. Solution to what? The problem is misidentified. And if you're so sure of yourself that you were right in 2020 with going along with all this shit, then I ask you again, why aren't we in lockdown right now? Because all of your justifications that you made back then are still here today, if you still want to believe that. Why aren't we in lockdown right now? Oh, because everyone's vaccinated, but you still got to take the vaccine. Why? You still got to take boosters. Why? Oh, because there's variants. So why aren't we in lockdown? It just goes round in circles. You went along with all of it. You thought it was right to fire people from their jobs for not taking the vaccine, including people that work at the hospital, by the way. Yeah, let's just sack a load of people that work at the hospital and then complain about how the hospitals are overrun. This is you. This is your logic. And even if you felt justified in being so extreme at the time, what's changed now? Why aren't we in lockdown now? Why aren't we freaking out now? If there's nothing to freak out about, then you don't need to take boosters. And if there is something to freak out about, which is why you need to take boosters, then we should be in lockdown, logically. This is what I mean. Oh, by the way, there is actually a real answer. I know you can't answer simple questions because you're a moron that goes on with illogical bullshit. But there is actually a real answer to why we're not in lockdown right now. The real reason why we got let back out and we don't have to wear masks is because us conspiracy theorists said, fuck off, we're not doing it. And there's actually way more of us than you'd like to believe there are. You're welcome. If you think the reason you're allowed out now is because you took a vaccine, then why do you still have to take the vaccine? Oh, because there's still a virus, it's a variant, so why aren't we in lockdown then? Shitloads of us aren't vaccinated. And you keep getting COVID, remember? Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that. Let me say it again. You're the vaccinated one and you keep getting COVID. I'm going to say it again. You're the vaccinated one and you keep getting COVID. I don't. My unvaccinated friends don't. You do. Now, I'm not going to go into how dangerous the vaccine is and what it's actually doing to people because my video would get taken down. Because you're not allowed to say that shit because it's best that you lot just don't know about that. Also, I peered into the window of the mind of a vaccinated mask-wearing dillweed and I saw something that I was like, oh my God. This was a couple of years ago when they first lifted the lockdown. When they first said, okay, you're allowed out now. And it was a couple of days after they lifted the lockdown, I saw some lefty fucking idiot mask-wearing spaznoid on my Facebook posted a status. He had seen some builders across the road from him working on a house, like 2 days after we lifted the lockdown. And he posted this thing going, slow down, guys. Just because they lifted the lockdown doesn't mean COVID's completely disappeared. I love it how everyone's just suddenly going out and doing stuff. You're just building. And I was like, oh my God, he must have actually been sitting in his house ever since they told him to stay in his house. Because during the first year and a half of COVID, I worked in a hardware store where builders go to buy their shit. And it was busy every day. Builders carried on working through the pandemic. Did you not know that? They were considered essential. So if you were considered non-essential and you were staying at home, you didn't know that. So when you saw builders 2 days after they lifted the lockdown, you're like, slow down, don't just go out. They were out the whole time. When you order food and people deliver it, who the fuck do you think delivered it? Yeah, people that are at work. Just because you sat at home and didn't go to work and carried on watching Boris on TV saying, you're not allowed out, you can't do this, you can't do that, doesn't mean everyone else did. When you go shopping and there's food on the shelves, there's people working there. The people that delivered the food to put it on the shelves, they're at work. Did you seriously think that no one was going to work just because you weren't? So it's like you literally got put into this bubble and didn't know that everyone else was just still out there. I was going to work every day. It was busy. Builders would come in and get fucking pissed off that they're not allowed to use cash because it might pass COVID around. So I know that I can't pull you out of your bubble. I know that I can't tell you anything because you won't listen. I know that you won't go and check the things that I tell you to go and check out. And I know if I say too much on here, I'll get taken down, so you'll never hear it. But what I can do is ask you to ask yourself some questions, which is, why aren't we in lockdown right now? And you know that your answer is, oh, because we're vaccinated. So then the next question is, Why do you have to take boosters then? Oh, because it's still a variant. Okay, so why aren't we in lockdown then? It just goes around in circles and you're not getting it. Because you don't want to admit that you're not protected against the virus, and you don't want to admit that the conspiracy theorists telling the government to fuck off is the actual reason why you're allowed out. We earned you your freedom. But it doesn't matter. The damage is still done. The lockdown ruined everything. And now the price of Freddos is £99.73p. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but if you think that inflation is going down, it will not. It goes up a chunk, then it comes down a tiny bit, and then it goes up a chunk again, so it never goes back down to how it was. Things are going to keep getting more expensive, and then eventually people are going to start stealing. Yeah. People are going to go, I can't afford that. They're not just going to starve just because they can't afford something. They're going to start stealing before they starve, aren't they? So then what you'll get is even worse than inflation. You're going to get companies putting stuff on shelves, and then it's disappearing off the shelves, but they're not getting any money because everyone's just going to keep stealing what they need. Meanwhile, we're making meat illegal because climate change and all this shit. It's like, can you just start being a little bit more cynical? Obviously, we trust science, as in real science, like actual science is good. Like, science is how we got everything that we love. But you know when they say trust the science, and you've got these people that sort of act like they represent all science, how about you stop trusting that? How about you have a little bit of self-reflection and just go, wait a minute, I did go along with the science, I did what I was supposed to do, and look where it's ended up. Look where I've ended up. I've ended up taking multiple jabs in order to stop me from getting a virus, but I keep getting the virus, and the people that didn't take the jab aren't getting the virus. And my justification for taking all of these jabs is because there's variants, yet the government isn't telling me I've got to stay at home or wear a mask anymore for some reason. And it's definitely not because the conspiracy theorists were right. Now, you might get someone who goes, oh no, but the variants aren't as bad as the original virus, so that's why there's no lockdown, that's why we don't need a mask. And I'm like, well, A, why would you take a booster for something that isn't as bad as something that wasn't even that bad? And B, you obviously have a bad memory because the justification for the boosters in the first place was that the variant could be more dangerous than the original virus. So if you're vaccinated, you need to admit to yourself that you're wrong and you listened to the wrong people, and you need to reconsider your sources, okay? And if you're unvaccinated, you need to stop trying to explain things to vaccinated people. They don't listen. Have you not learnt that yet? But don't give up on them either. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to show a new method. If explaining things doesn't work because they think you're crazy and they never check out the things you're talking about, so they just think you're making it up or something, instead, always ask questions. Don't explain things. Ask questions. Make them explain it. Make them go back to 2020 and make them walk you through all the way up to 2024 and make it make sense. Because they can't. Go, look, okay, so why did we go on a lockdown? Oh, right, that's the reason. So why aren't we in lockdown right now? Oh, are you feeling okay? You getting a headache? Oh, you know, back in 2020 when we found out there was a virus in China, and then we carried on having flights in and out of China on airplanes for months, flying the virus all over the planet, and then we just told everyone, oh, you're not allowed to leave your house. Yeah, that was logical, wasn't it? You agree with that. That was the right way to go about it. Trust the experts. Do you know what I mean? Take it back to 2020 and make them walk you through it and make it make sense. And make them explain why you should trust the government and should trust authority and should trust the science. If you tell a vaccinated person to go back to 2020 and get them to walk you all the way up to 2024, walk me through it, make it make sense. They have bad memories, selective memories, I would say. They don't want to remember most of it because they know it doesn't make sense. So remind them. Just go, no, that isn't actually what happened. It happened like this. Don't you remember? Yeah, you are allowed to go to the pub, but you have to wear a mask. Oh, unless you're sitting down. It's only when you're standing up that you catch COVID. Oh, and you have to go home an hour earlier. We're going to shut the pub at 10, not 11, because COVID, because the virus only comes out at night or something. Yeah, make it make sense. Yeah, I've figured out that the best way to start it, the best way to ask straight away is, Why are we not in lockdown right now? Just see what they say. And they will inevitably say, oh, isn't it because we're vaccinated? Okay, so what's up with the boosters? What are they for? Oh, because of the variant. Okay, so why aren't we in lockdown? Oh, because the variant's not as bad. That's not what they said, though. They said you've got to take boosters because the variant could be worse. So why aren't we in lockdown? Just make it make sense. And then when they fail at that, go, okay, you now have to stop believing what you believe. Because this is the way to go about it. You can't tell them, you need to believe what I believe. They will never do that. But you can convince them to stop believing what they believe. Because you can go, look, it's bollocks. You know it's bollocks. Stop it. So anyway, that's it.